Hello, this is Art Games. I'm getting pulled in so many directions right now. I don't really have time to do what I really want to do, which is AI art related stuff, but I have a little bit of time today, so I'm going to do a bit of comic book coloring. I don't have access to my large format scanner right now, so I'm just using a regular scanner, combine stuff together later. I can easily cut and paste stuff together using the small format scanner, using the regular scanner. This scanner is kind of trash, but I'll make do. I'll make this a smart object to this layer so that I don't lose any data despite the slight edits I make to it. There's something preventing my sketchbook from lying flat on the scanner deck, so that's why some of this image is a bit blurry. But when I rescan the page with my large format scanner, I'll be able to fix all this up. No problem. I'll put a white background down. Now create a levels layer and make the whites actually white. Oop, that's not right. Let's go more or less like that. Now, because the paper's not lying flat, some of these whites are not pure white. Like over here on the top right and bottom left, those are not pure whites. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply this level layer. I'll duplicate it and then flatten it. And then go to Image, Adjustments, Replace Color, and select these slightly off-white whites over here. And bring the lightness up to there, which that looks terrible. So I have to bring the fuzziness down. At 0 I can see it very precisely what colors it's picking to change. So I'll just choose as many of these as possible and then bring the fuzziness slightly up and see. Let's see, does that wreck everything? I think that might be too much. Yeah, that is too much. Let's try that again. And I'll have to use some layer effects. I'll have to use some masking in order to improve this. So adjustments, image adjustments, replace color, select. I'm not sure you can see those on YouTube, but they're quite prominent on my screen. And then bring the fuzziness up just a little tiny bit. Let's see, 10%. If it wasn't blurry, this would be a lot better. Let's see, does that mess things up too much? It's acceptable for the moment. Again, like I said, when I rescan this on my large format scanner, I'll be able to fix a lot of these problems. But I just need to create some content for today, and this is acceptable. The perfect is the enemy of the good. Alright, which of these should I work on? Let's do the simpler one, the lower one. Okay. Our background is going to be a sky color. So first of all, let's set our line art layer to multiply. And nothing visibly changed just then because we have black and white on top of a white background, and that's not going to visibly change anything. But it will allow us to put colors underneath our line art layer and for the colors to show through. So we want a light blue sky. Let's go for that. I might change that. No, actually I'll leave that and I'll add a slight gradient to it. Gradients are your friend when it comes to artwork because it mimics how light actually works in real life most of the time. Most of the time, if you see like a wall that's whatever color it is, technically it's not all the same color. Whatever side of the wall is closest to the light source will be a lighter color. Now your brain won't consciously register that a lot of the time, but that is the way that it is. But first, let's manually crop out the image frame. And I have to use this tool. What is this tool called? I don't know, I'll check in a moment. Because I hand drew these lines, they're not perfectly straight. If they were perfectly straight, I could use the Marquee tool to select this area. But I wanted a more organic look to the comic book panels. Go to our mask layer and inverse, Control-Shift-I, delete. Okay, now we'll put a slight gradient on here. I create a layer, attach it to the layer below it, grab my gradient tool, and grab a more cyan-like blue. Make sure we have the right gradient setting. Yep, that looks right. Whoops, that's not right. There we go. And drag up. Right. Already looks a little bit more like a sky. Alright, now what base background color should we use for this building? It's concrete, so probably gray. Should I select it or draw it in? Probably should draw it in. Create a new layer. Select the gray. Probably a slightly bluish gray since we're still quite a bit a ways from the building. We're going to have some bluish atmospheric haze in there. Let's go for, I don't know, I'm just guessing. If I guess wrong, I can very easily change the color a little bit later. Oops, I do not want opacity. Yeah, there we go. I'm applying a mask to the group layer, which has the colors in it, so that I don't draw outside of the panel. See, I can draw here in the panel, but not outside the panel. Now, I drew slightly outside the line here, as you can see, but I don't think it matters that much. And at this point, like I said, I'm going to have to rescan this later and fix it up. So it's not worth fixing little mistakes like that right at this step. So basically, I just draw in the outline of the building. Now, what some people would do is they would use the level effects to darken up the line art. They do something like this. Let's see, levels, and do something like that to make everything a lot darker. But I find that things look better when you don't make everything perfectly black. That's just my own personal take. So I'm not going to do that, at least not at this step. B for brush. I have my tablet mapped out to only cover the center portion of my computer screen because I'm using a giant computer screen right at the moment. And it would be rather difficult to control the placement of the cursor if I had the tablet mapped out to the whole screen. Here, I'll show. So basically, my tablet is mapped out to about this. Whoops. Yeah, about that much of my screen, as you can see there. Now that I look at it, that is there's something funny going on with the proportions there. I'll have to fix that later. It's not. Yeah. How that happened. I'll have to fix that. My tablet is a lot more rectangular than that. That was a lot more square. Good thing I did that. Okay, now rather than manually drawing all that in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select outside. Whoops, make sure I have sample all layers turned off. Select outside and make sure I have contiguous turned on. Select outside and then press Control-Shift-I to inverse. So now I have the building selected. Go to select, modify, contract. I'll contract by 2 pixels. Select G for paint bucket and just fill that all in. Click a couple times so that we don't get any feathering. And there we go. There's our building. So let's start with something simple. Oh yes, we have to remember to put a gradient on here at some point, but let's hold off on that. Let's start with something simple. Let's draw these letters on the building. Now I would presume that the most likely color for these letters would be white paint. So let's draw those letters in white. That shade of gray looks all right to me, so I'll leave that for the moment. At the end of this all, I might apply some color effects to affect the whole image. Sometimes it's best to wait until you have like a basic color scheme for your drawing and then go back and apply some sort of color effect on top of everything so that you have more unified colors. You know, this reminds me, many years ago I was working a little bit as a sign painter. And I was, you know, a real stickler for getting all the little tiny details right. And my boss was telling me, you know, most people are going to see this sign for half a second when they're passing it on the highway. They are not going to notice any of these little details you're making sure are absolutely perfect. You could make enormous mistakes, and most people, 99.9% of the people, would never notice that you made that you'd made a mistake. I remember the quotation. His quotation was something along the lines of, I can't remember. He was saying the client, the guy who's paying you to make the sign, is your harshest critic. No one else is going to be anywhere close as harsh as the critic himself. Now these are windows here. I'll make them black, I guess. To begin with, let's give it a slightly green black color. Not too dark, but yeah, let's try that. I don't have to make a new layer for this, but I will anyway. Might not be necessary, but that's what I'm going to go with. I almost feel like I want to redraw these windows because they're not really that circular. They're kind of misshapen, but like I said, the perfect is the enemy of the good, or whatever that expression is, at least in artwork. It doesn't always apply in every situation, but it kind of does here. And we have a rusty pipe of some sort here. For this one I'm going to use let's see, what is this tool called? The lasso tool. This is going to be a rusty metal color, so I'll go with a reddish gray, I think. Could go with a greeny color. Once I get a couple of these basic colors in, I will go back in and add some textures. Okay, so those are selected. We go to solid color, create a new solid color layer, and select a reddish orangey gray, say like that. All right, and due to ambient occlusion, the building wall behind this pipe is going to be a little bit darker because not the same amount of light is reaching it. So we have an easy way of doing that in Photoshop. We can just create a new layer, make sure it's beneath the pipe, set it to multiply, make sure we have our gradient tool selected. Let's choose a light bluish, a very faint blue-gray, and do that. Whoop, that's not right. We need to select just the area we want. Okay, so like that. And go like this. That's still a bit too blue for my liking. Let's make it a little bit more gray. Like that. How's that look? I need to zoom out to take a better look at this. New window. New window. Whoop. Put that up here so I can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Looks all right to me, but I want a bit of a shadow on the other side as well. Probably not exactly the same amount, just a little bit less. All right, that looks good. Now this thing here is supposed to be like a joint between the two buildings, so I'm going to select that and darken it a little bit. I'm going to just go a little bit off topic right now. I started watching The Wheel of Time Season 3, and my first impressions from watching the first episode of Season 3 and a little bit of the second is that it seems like they've course-corrected a little bit. Not by much, but they seem to have toned down the sort of emasculation of the male characters, which is very nice, I suppose, but they still have plenty of degeneracy in there. There was degeneracy in the original novels, of course, but not to the extent that they're putting in the TV show. Okay, I believe I said that these panels here are supposed to be a gold color. So let's do that now. they've given the male characters more of an opportunity to behave in what seem to be a bit more genuinely masculine ways. Like saying no to women. It's a big part of being a man. Women are like, let's do this. And the men are like, no. The Matt Cawthon character is, wait a minute. Matt is the spear guy, right? It's Perrin. They give the Perrin character, he's slightly less effeminate now. The first 2 seasons he was like, oh, woe is me, the whole time. And they're allowing Perrin to be, and they're allowing Matt to be a bit more of a ladies' man like he is in the book. I think. I mean, I haven't read the book in a long time. I don't really recommend watching the show. It's more of a case study in disaster. I think I'll write a review later for Fandom Pulse. Okay, new layer, solid color, and gold. Probably want to start with a darker gold color, and then brighten it up after the fact. Okay, let's add some textures to this now. I'm going to select my concrete layer and then put a layer on top of that. I can't remember the word for when you put a layer on top of another layer, and then it whatever you put on the top layer only shows up if it's on top of what's on the other layer. I am not expressing that very well. But as you can see over here, there's a little arrow on top beside this layer, which means that it will only, if you draw anything on this layer, it will only show up if it is on top of what you've already drawn. It's like I don't know what the word is, a slaved layer. That's not right, but something like that. Alright, let's choose a speckly brush. Let's see what I have here. Art Gains brushes. I don't want foliage brushes. I want either speckles or rock. I have rock and where's my speckles? I seem to be missing some of my speckles. Oh, there they are. Right in front of my nose. Let's try this. Let's select a dark gray. Whoops. Trees? I don't want trees. I want speckles. These speckles are a bit too big, but they're not terrible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a lot more transparent, so they just faintly show through. Alright, now let's make a new layer, put that on top of there, make our brush even smaller, and draw in some speckles. Very subtle. Subtlety is often the best approach. Now let's create a new layer. You don't have to work with so many layers, but I have a very powerful computer and it can handle it. And let's choose a lighter color of gray with the same size speckle brush, and I don't like that. Let's make the brush a little bit bigger, see what we get. I think that looks all right to me. Let's turn the opacity down just a little bit so it's not too pronounced. 77%? 77% seems all right to me. Now let's do the gold. Select the gold layer, put a layer on top of there. And this is a very shiny, reflective surface, unless it's like a matte texture. What should I do? I'll experiment, see what I get. I don't want speckles. Let's see. Clouds. I want to make this layer screen layer. And select a dark reddish color. See what effect we get there. We also have to set the brush to screen. That looks pretty good to me. Like it's reflecting something in the background, some building that's reflecting light. That looks good. But we also want to put highlights because this is a shiny metal surface. So let's put a new layer. Grab ourselves a relatively normal brush. Let's go for, well, let's try this one. And we want a whitish or yellow color. Just draw that on there. I think the sun is coming from the right. Well, still, we would still get highlights on the left side, even though the sun is on the right. But for the moment, let's just put highlights on the right. To make sure this layer is set to screen. There we go. Now again, it's not that important that you get all this perfect, because the reality is that if you're looking at something from far away, it will be kind of distorted. So putting a lot of effort into making sure that everything is just absolutely perfect and straight and square, it's like, well, you can do that if you want, but you might not get as much of a benefit from it as you would want. It might actually look better if it's a little bit wonky. In my opinion, anyway. At the end of the day, a lot of it just boils down to how confident you are. Because if you're always second-guessing your decisions, you'll never get anything done. I mean, it is important to erase something if it's wrong, but just, choosing to go with it is also rather important a lot of the time. A lot of the time, if you're working for a client, they will set a standard, and that will help you figure out, what to aim for. Okay, now let's put some shadows on these being cast by these panels, because I'm going to say, okay, they're sticking out from the building a little bit, so they're going to cast a little bit of a shadow. So we'll select our building layer. Where is it? There it is. Create a new layer. Set it to multiply. That's a darkener. And we can choose basically any color to cast a shadow, but because the air is like the ambient color of the atmosphere is a bluish color, we'll go with a blue-gray. One of the things that used to bog me down with my artwork was this desire to make sure that everything was just absolutely perfect. And the thing is, we don't perceive things perfectly in the first place. So you don't have to be absolutely perfect in how you portray everything, because most people won't notice. And as long as it might not be perfect, but it conveys the idea of what you're trying to communicate, then that's acceptable. Let's quickly add in the clouds here, just to give us a bit more atmosphere. Select our building layer, put a layer underneath it. Select a basic brush, hard round, no opacity, there we go. Select white. Select, modify, expand. Let's go for 40 pixels. Oops, that's too much. Select, modify, expand 4 pixels. Fill tool. Or actually, this is the gradient tool. Yeah, it's alright. And again, I'm not being too careful to draw inside the lines here because, one, it really doesn't matter that much, and two, I have to rescan the line art anyway later, and I'll have to go back and probably do a bunch of touch-ups. Now this is supposed to be an open hole in the side of a building, so we'll go with a very dark color. I just selected the same color as the windows, Oops, my brush is still set to screen. I don't want that. It's to be set to normal. And the vent cover, my mind is blanking on what color that should be. Let's go with pale blue. Nope, that doesn't look right. Dark blue, gray. I have to make sure there's a shadow behind this grate. Let's make sure, let's see if I can select my shadow brush. Is that my shadow brush? I think it is. See if I can select my shadow layer. Where is that? Ah, there it is. I want to select the same color I was using before, so I select the eyedropper tool and then current layer. Blam. Alright. Okay, so these horizontal strips here, these are supposed to be areas where the concrete is jutting out, so there should be a bit of a shadow underneath here. Let me turn off shape dynamics so that I can just click shift. Turn off opacity jitter as well. Color dynamics, turn that off. And we have these big bins up here. Let's color these in somehow. These are supposed to be metal bins, so they should have a bit of a metal texture on them. Rusty metal texture. Doesn't look quite right. Alright, now for this sports car thing. Let's make it a hot red. We could make the windshield any color that we wanted. Do we want black, gold, silver? Let's go with silver. Silver is more of a texture than an actual color, but I'll see if I can imitate it. Right, I said I was going to apply a gradient to the building, so I'm just going to select all the layers that apply, which would be from here down, group those, create a layer on top of that will affect it, set that to multiply, select the gradient tool, select a bluish color, make sure we have the right gradient selected, there we go, yeah, there we go. Could make it more pronounced like that. It certainly gives a bit more three-dimensionality to it. Yeah, that looks good to me. We forgot this landing pad over here. Let's add that in. Now there's a bit more details I'd probably put in here if I had more time, but I have to call it quits now. Last thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to apply a texture layer to the whole image just to give it a bit more life. Bring my palettes layer over here and select my Mobius texture and make sure it's not, there we go. Turn it a bit. This is not my good Mobius texture. I haven't had time to find my good Mobius texture. This one has obvious seams in it, which is a problem, but it's okay for the moment. So let's set that layer to overlay and bring the opacity down to about 24%, 25%. Now, you might not be able to see this if you're really zoomed out, but let's take a closer look here. So you can see the Mobius texture or what I'm calling the Mobius texture, fairly well here in the sky, but it's applied everywhere. You can't see it in the clouds though. That's one of the effects of setting texture to overlay. If I set it to multiply, you should be able to see it. Yeah, there we go. But I don't want multiply, I want it to overlay, because overlay layer doesn't generally change the lightness or the darkness. It just applies a texture on top of things. I'm just going to mirror this so that I can more easily appreciate my work. Looks a bit weird reversed to me, but that's alright. Alright, I think that's it for the day. If you want to help me out so that I can continue to bring you content, preferably AI art related content, which is what I'd like to do, you can consider getting my book, The Screaming Void. It's available on Amazon as an ebook, hardcover and softcover. If you like Alien or The Chronicles of Riddick or John Carpenter's The Thing, you might like it, so check it out. And if you want to ensure that you always get my content, the best option is to sign up for my Substack. YouTube won't always show you the things you sign up for, but Substack is one of the best ways to get around that. Thank you very much. Have a good day.